Have you ever wondered why you can master all the investing rules, read every single strategy, and still end up making the same financial mistakes? Well, it's because our relationship with money isn't just about spreadsheets and logic. It's deeply and, often irrationally psychological. Okay, let's really dive into this. You can be an absolute genius. You can know all the data. But if you don't get a handle on the emotions that are driving your decisions, your own mind can quietly sabotage your wealth. Our feelings, our biases, our personal histories, they're almost always the ones in the driver's seat. And this, right here, this gets to the very heart of the problem. Being smart doesn't protect us from these hidden biases. In fact, sometimes our intelligence just helps us create more convincing stories to justify our gut feelings. So to really understand this, we have to start with a diagnosis. Our biggest blind spot? It's that our own financial choices feel perfectly rational to us because they're a direct result of our own unique life experiences. Just think about it for a second. Someone who lost everything in the Great Depression might see the stock market as a total casino for the rest of their life. But a tech worker who got rich in the 90s dot-com boom, they might see risk as pure opportunity. Neither of them is crazy. They're just operating from completely different but equally valid personal realities. So this leads us to the first major way our perception clashes with reality. It's all about how we think about luck, risk, and the stories we choose to believe. Now, this is a fascinating story. Bill Gates is brilliant, no question. But he also had a 1 in a million stroke of luck. He went to one of the only high schools in the world that had a computer back in the 1970s. His close friend, Kent Evans, was just as brilliant, but he was hit with a 1 in a million stroke of risk. He died in a mountaineering accident before he even finished high school. You see, same effort, wildly different outcomes, all driven by forces they just couldn't control. So the real point here is this. Success isn't always earned, and failure isn't always deserved. This means we should stop idolizing these extreme success stories like Bill Gates because they're often unrepeatable. Instead, we should be studying the broad, repeatable patterns that help us build a financial life that can actually survive a bit of bad luck. And here's another big symptom of our money psychology. We are just wired to respond to a good story way more than we respond to data. Someone hears a story about a single lottery winner, and suddenly buying a ticket feels like a reasonable plan, even though the odds are 1 in 300 million. The story feels good, so we just want it to be true. This really highlights the danger of what the author Morgan Housel calls appealing fictions. I mean, just think of the 2021 crypto boom. People weren't buying the math or the technology. They were buying the dream that influencers were selling them. The story was, get in early, don't miss out. So you've always got to ask yourself, do I believe this because of the data or because I really, really want to believe the story? All right, building on that, the next set of traps we fall into are all driven by our ego. This is where our need for social status and comparing ourselves to others leads us down some seriously dangerous financial paths. Maybe the most destructive mindset of all is the constant chase for more. Sam Bankman-Fried was worth over $20 billion at age 29. He had everything he could ever need, but he risked it all, including his customers' money, to chase what he didn't need. More status, more power. He just didn't know when to stop, and the whole empire came crashing down. This desire for more is totally fueled by social comparison, and it is a game that is absolutely impossible to win because the goalposts are always moving. I mean, this quote just says it all. Even the most powerful people in history felt like they were falling behind. The only real way to win is to just refuse to play. You have to define what enough means for you, and then you protect it at all costs. Oh man, this is one of the most brilliant concepts in the whole book. We buy expensive things because we think it'll make people admire us, but it almost never works. When people see your fancy car or your big house, they don't see you. They use your stuff as a mirror for their own desires. They're just imagining themselves with your things. And that leads to this absolutely critical distinction. Looking rich is all about spending. It's loud, it's visible, and it's draining your money. But being rich, true wealth, is the exact opposite. It's the money you haven't spent. It's quiet. It's the financial assets that buy you freedom, not the stuff you see on social media. Okay, so we've diagnosed the problem, we've looked at the symptoms, now let's talk about the prescription. This section is all about the powerful mindset shifts you need for long-term financial success. Just look at this number, $156 billion. It's an amount of money that's almost impossible to wrap your head around. But what does it actually represent? That's right. Over 97% of Warren Buffett's entire net worth was earned after he qualified for Social Security. This isn't a story about being a genius. It's a story about the staggering, almost unbelievable power of compounding. He got rich not from chasing the absolute highest returns, but by getting good returns that he let compound for over 80 years. Time. Time is the most powerful force in finance. Now, to really harness that power of time, you have to stay in the game. And that means you have to pay the price. And that price isn't some fine for making a mistake, it's the fee for admission. Market downturns are not a punishment, they are the unavoidable cost of getting those long-term gains. You know, Netflix stock returned over 35,000% in its first 16 years, but it spent 94% of that time below its all-time high. The fee was just constant discomfort. And this perfectly illustrates that staying in the game requires a totally different skill set from getting into it in the first place. Getting rich is offense. It takes optimism, it takes risk. But staying rich, that's all defense. That requires humility, caution, and a laser focus on survival so you don't get wiped out. So that brings us to the final, and maybe the most important part of the whole prescription. Once you understand the psychology, what is the real goal you should be aiming for with your money? The foundation of wealth isn't earning more, it's needing less. As your income grows, if your ego grows right along with it, meaning you keep upgrading your lifestyle, you'll never build a gap. And that gap, your savings, that's what creates wealth. And you know, saving doesn't always need a specific goal. Saving just for the sake of saving buys you options, flexibility, and control over your own future. So let's be crystal clear about the trade-off here. Money can buy you stuff, cars, houses, all those visible luxuries. But true wealth, those unseen assets we've been talking about, provide something so much more valuable: freedom over your time and control over your own life. And that right there is the ultimate takeaway. The goal isn't a number in a bank account. It's not about impressing people you don't even know with things you don't even need. It's about achieving the ultimate dividend that money can possibly pay, the absolute freedom to live your life on your own terms. So the real question is, what are you optimizing your money for?